Ron DeSantis has served as governor of Florida since January 2019. During his tenure, he has, amongst other, often bigoted things, banned school lessons about racial discrimination in United States history, stripped LGBTQ people of their rights, enacted book bans that target material about queer and/or black people, expelled Hispanic people from their communities, complained about immigrants being sent by the federal government to Florida to be united with sponsors, enacted educational standards that praise the enslavement of black people, and forced people to give birth at a stage where they are unlikely to even know that they are pregnant, while also forcing births for fetuses conceived through rape, incest, and/or human trafficking.
I may be ugly and hate-filled, but what was the third thing you said?
In May 2023, DeSantis announced he was running for president. Since then, he has fallen far behind former President Donald Trump in polling for the Republican Party's nomination. However, with Trump's legal issues, it is possible these could help DeSantis get the lead for the presidential nomination. Since DeSantis became governor, Nazi groups have increased their public organizing in Florida. This includes, but is not necessarily limited, to the following cases. In January 2022, along a highway bridge and at a shopping plaza, each in Orlando, a group of Nazis displayed signage for their ideology and pushed anti-Semitic rhetoric. DeSantis would condemn this event, but only after it was falsely speculated the participants were part of some sort of conspiracy by Democratic Party activists by Press Secretary Christina Pushaw.
You look like a trout.
That same month, David Neustadt, a Jewish man, was assaulted by a group of at least 3 Nazis who would be arrested for what they did. In July 2022, neo-Nazis organized outside of the Tampa Convention Center, where Turning Point USA, itself a white supremacist organization, was holding an event that included DeSantis as a speaker. In February 2023, a Nazi group harassed Jewish people at a community center in Orlando and also organized outside of Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, which included projecting praise for longest-serving Chancellor of Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler. In June 2023, the neo-Nazi group The Order of the Black Sun held an event outside of Walt Disney World in Orlando. That same month, the Nazi group held an event in Lakeland at Explorations 5 Children's Museum, where they carried flags for their ideology and stated in opposition to President Joe Biden. In September 2023, in Orlando, members of the neo-Nazi groups the Aryan Freedom Network, the 14 First, and, once again, the Order of the Black Sun, held a rally where they voiced their hatred for Jewish, LGBTQ, and non-white people. With the exception of the first incident listed, none of these were denounced by DeSantis, his administration, and/or his political campaign. The most infamous case of Nazi organizing in Florida under DeSantis would come on August 26, 2023. That day, domestic terrorists began shooting inside of a Dollar General store in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, 3 people were killed in the attack, which was determined to be done in the name of white supremacy. Additionally, the shooter had Nazi symbols on their weaponry. After having pushed white supremacy and a hatred of black people, DeSantis appeared at a memorial event for the victims of the Jacksonville attack, where he was met with a negative reaction.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here. We're going to ask the governor if he would come down and turn remarks. Thank you for doing this. I want to just say to the Councilwoman, I got you. Don't worry about it. We've already been looking to identify funds to be able to help, one, make sure there's adequate security for Edward Waters College. We are not going to allow these institutions to be targeted by people.
Your policies caused this! These deaths are on your head!
Following the murders, something that various reactionary figures said was that DeSantis himself was a victim in connection to the attack by taking issue with it being pointed out that he pushed the white supremacist ideology that the terrorist had a more extreme version of. You may have noticed that none of the people I've shown actually say how the characterization of DeSantis' hatred for black people is wrong, They just complain about something negative being said about a political ally. Quite frankly, I find it disgusting to say that a victim of murders done with a motivation of white supremacy is a person who, in connection to the attack, was only criticized for pushing a less extreme form of white supremacy. Something else that has occurred with DeSantis is the amount of people or groups that support him or even work for him that have expressed positive views of Nazism, even if they do not subscribe to the ideology themselves, such as supporting and or defending the ideology, its significant figures, actions, or what have you. Here are some examples. Bruce Carroll Jr. is a Republican activist that formed the organization Geo Proud and the blog Gay Patriot, which has since become a Twitter account. Despite DeSantis' hatred for queer people like Carroll, he is a supporter of DeSantis.
You stupid, ignorant son of a bitch, dumb bastard!
In June 2023, Carroll stated that socialists and communists in America are, quote, all domestic enemies, end quote. When it was pointed out that Carroll's rhetoric matched rhetoric that Hitler used in the process of him acquiring power and influence in Germany in the 1920s and early 1930s, and that the first victims of Nazi Germany's concentration camps were communists, Carroll responded by praising the Nazi government.
Well, we all agree with Hitler's views. Although he killed 6 million Jews, it don't matter too much if he was a fascist. At least you can't say he was a communist.
While there were atrocities, including actions such as mass murder, committed by communist governments, the Black Book of Communism, Crimes, Terrors, Repression, the main and original source of the claim that communism killed 100 million people, comes to the figure by including cases of government mismanagement. More than half of the 100 million deaths come from this category, and people who died young, even if they were not directly killed by government action. While these deaths were certainly tragic, they were not murders done by the government. Meanwhile, Nazi Germany, through the Holocaust, their genocide of Jewish people and various other civil groups, and violent actions in Eastern Europe and domestically in World War II, killed an estimated 40 million people, which does not include the amount of people killed through Nazi military action in other regions during the war. I will also note that, under the Nazi government, an estimated amount of, at most, 15,000 gay men were sent to concentration camps, where most of them died. Pedro Gonzalez is a white nationalist blogger that has stated that Jewish people are preventing white domination in the United States.
AstroTurf. You know who's responsible for that, don't you? The Jews!
Gonzalez's work was pushed by various people that work for DeSantis, and he has been described as a, quote, vocal ally, end quote, of DeSantis.
Michael is your superior.
No.
Okay, you should be bowing down in front of him. Hey, right now.
Gonzalez has also been a major supporter of Nick Fuentes, a neo-Nazi, to the point of declaring Fuentes, quote, the future, end quote. Following the revelation of comments like that, the DeSantis affiliate organization never backed down, distanced themselves from Gonzalez. However, the Florida Standard, a pro-DeSantis media outlet that is funded by his political donors, published Gonzalez. Nate Hochman has been a writer for the prominent right-wing publication National Review. There, he complained about there not being enough white people attending Stanford University, and then cited this to say there should be less people from minority groups being accepted for a given organization's positions.
What a fucking pussy.
In July 2023, while working as a speechwriter for DeSantis' presidential campaign, Hochman created a video for the campaign that used the Nazi symbol. I will also point out that at one point in the video, it lists various ways DeSantis discriminated against LGBTQ people while showing footage of people like that, then police officers coming through a ceiling, and finally, somebody, presumably the same officer in the context of the video, assaults what appears to be a drag performer who is merely standing. This indicates that Hochman wants to use violence, perhaps to the point of murder, by government agents against LGBTQ people for benignly existing. Following this, Hochman was fired from the DeSantis campaign, but he was still defended by some parts of the mainstream American right. Mujahid Kobe is the co-host of the far-right program The Habibi Bros on Rumble, a video platform that forbids content that is in opposition to fascism, while falsely claiming that opposing fascism is inherently violent and illegal, despite claiming to support free speech. Kobe's co-host, Siraj Hashmi, is an executive at Rumble. In August 2023, in response to a California state policy that bans school employees from outing queer students' gender and/or sexual orientation, without their consent, Kobe falsely claimed that this was a conspiracy to keep secrets from other people so that pedophilic acts can be done on people and make them join a cult.
The international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Kobe's rant came less than 2 weeks after Laura Ann Carlton, owner of the Magpie clothing and decor store in Cedar Glen, California, was murdered because somebody had an irrational hatred for them having an LGBTQ pride flag on their business. The murderer was very supportive of rhetoric like what Kobe said. In May 2023, political pundit Benjamin P. Dixon pointed out that a lot of neo-Nazis were supportive of DeSantis. In response to the observation in Dixon's statement that he is against fascism, Kobe stated that Dixon is a, quote, dumb piece of shit, end quote, and it is hard to believe that he is taken seriously. When accused of being a fascist due to his stated dislike of Antifa, an anti-fascist movement, Kobe answered that he is a fascist.
Goddamn liberals scream fascist, but the simple truth is, Hitler was right.
Considering Kobe's hatred for queer people and his favorable views towards Nazism, which has, as a tenet, the belief that LGBTQ people should be executed, it is a reasonable assumption that he would consider Carlton's murder to be a good event. Additionally, following the October 2023 attack of Israel by the terrorist group Hamas, Kobe explicitly called her the genocide of the people in Palestine. Kobe's hatred of Palestinians also includes him saying that people getting punished for opposing their mistreatment by the apartheid government of Israel is alright, and wrongly stating that calling for Palestinian people to have equal rights in Israel and Palestine is an endorsement of the murder of babies and rape. Under Israeli law, Arabian people are segregated under an apartheid system, and Jewish Israelis are allowed to steal land and homes from Arabians. Perhaps Kobe, who is either an American of Lebanese descent or is from the Arabian country of Lebanon, believes that his ethnicity inherently makes him a lesser human, meaning he supports Israel's discriminatory policies towards people like him. Stephen L. Miller is a right-wing media pundit. In December 2022, he stated he does not understand how babies are created.
Where's the clitoris? On a website it said at the crest of the labia. What does that mean? What is the female vagina?
To be clear, this is a different person than Stephen Miller, a senior advisor to the president under Trump that is also a white nationalist. The former Miller has described DeSantis as, quote, the great right hope, end quote, in response to a January 2023 editorial in the Courier Journal stating that International Holocaust Remembrance Day should be used to remember and oppose all forms of discrimination against civil groups. Miller claimed that this somehow diminished the Holocaust, after it was pointed out that the sentiment of the article is merely following the mantra, never again, which means to oppose genocide and, by extension, other forms of discrimination against civil groups. Miller went on a lengthy rant that included him saying that the transgender victims of the Holocaust should not be memorialized, nor should transgender people acknowledge that they were a victim of the Nazi government's murders. Somebody is a, quote, absolute maniac, end quote, for bringing up the Nazi policy towards transgender people, claiming that Jewish people were the only victim of the Holocaust and that anybody who disagrees is, quote, dabbling in denialism, end quote, as Miller denied that millions of non-Jewish people were murdered as part of the Holocaust, and transgender people should not exist as a concept, by referring to Dylan Mulvaney, a transgender woman, as a man, while having a fantasy of Mulvaney being at least under arrest by Nazi Germany. Miller's rant indicates that he does not view Nazi Germany's discrimination and government-sanctioned murder as being an inherent bad thing. Rather, he only views it as an atrocity when it pertains to only certain targeted civil groups. In October 2023, after environmental activist Greta Thunberg stated that she has solidarity with the people of Palestine in connection with their mistreatment by Israel, Miller stated that she should be murdered with a drone strike.
I am crazy!
Additionally, he views calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war as a call for, quote, the mass murder of Jews, end quote. Even though ending military hostilities would lessen, if not eliminate, the amount of Jewish people in Israel and Palestine killed by military action, Considering Miller's stated violent desire in reaction to somebody merely having solidarity with Palestinian people, he likely wants the war to continue so that more people in Palestine, including civilians, get killed.
And it doesn't matter a damn to you, I suppose, that thousands of innocent people will be killed.
Moms for Liberty is a far-right organization that started off opposing health precautions during the coronavirus pandemic and is against non-white and/or LGBTQ people existing as equal humans in society. They are against Tennessee schools having material that discusses the aftermath of racial segregation in the United States and black civil rights activist Martin Luther King. The organization has overseen book ban campaigns, which primarily target books about and/or written by queer people. However, they also have an issue with material by black people. An example of this is their chapter in Miami-Dade County, Florida, banning the book The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman from a local school. Under Moms for Liberty, there has been a call to treat LGBTQ people like people who have mental and/or physical disabilities. DeSantis has spoken at the group's national summit in Tampa, Florida in July 2022 and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania the following July. The latter event was met with large protests. In June 2023, the Hamilton County, Indiana chapter praised Hitler by quoting him talking about how controlling young people means that you can control the future, as the group attempts to control children.
I'm Hitler.
The following month, at a Moms for Liberty conference, Tiffany Justice, co-founder of the group, stated that she supports the individual member who praised Hitler, and the crowd responded with cheers and applause.
One of our moms in a newsletter quotes Hitler. Woo! I stand with that mom.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Also in July 2023, the organization released a statement that claimed, without evidence, that ideologues are damaging children and politicized unions are causing unspecified harm, while citing the survival of the United States and the well-being of children as the reason for the statement.
Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. It's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist.
The statement also stated that Jewish people are not part of the American nationality. The group has also had its own connections to violence, such as an officer with the Lonoke County, Arkansas chapter discussing murdering a librarian in June 2022, and Ed Kelly, a member of the Charleston County School District Board of Trustees in South Carolina, stating his desire to at least threaten a transgender teacher with a gun, while at a Moms for Liberty event in March 2023.
I'd kill you if I had my gun.
Yeah, well, you don't.
Various local chapters have associated with far-right, if not outright fascist, militias, such as the Proud Boys, which has included these militias intimidating their political opponents. Despite stuff like their association with fascist militias, praise for Hitler, and members endorsing violence, DeSantis has not denounced Moms for Liberty. In fact, in September 2023, he appointed Tina Descovich, a co-founder of the organization, to a state government position. Jennifer Say was an executive at clothing company Levi Strauss, but quit her job in February 2022 after her colleagues disagreed with her opposition to public health precautions during the 2020's coronavirus pandemic in the United States, which killed approximately 1.1 million people from February 2020 to March 2023.
What a no deal!
You know something? I like your passion. Okay, we'll do the show, and we'll do it your way.
No.
Afterwards, Say became a figure in right-wing media, where she falsely claimed that she was fired from her job due to her reactionary views. To be clear, she voluntarily decided to leave her job. Nobody forced her to do that. Say is part of a political movement that believes that things like people having to wear masks to mitigate coronavirus spread was worse than people having health issues or even dying due to the disease.
They stole my laptop.
Yeah, well, they stole my surge protector.
How does that even compare?
Oscar, I'm now going to be prone to surges.
She also believes a conspiracy that the people who were injured or killed by the disease actually had that happen to them due to ventilator machines.
Squidward! The robots are running the Navy!
Not the Navy!
In fact, Say thinks that the health precautions were comparable to sexual abuse.
Right in here. Good. Come on in. Great.
You know what? We're not that different, you and I. When I clamped my foot.
A health precaution that Say particularly opposed was children doing virtual classes so that the coronavirus spread could be mitigated by not having large gatherings of people. In other words, Say did not like having to spend more time with her children.
This is just what I've wanted to do ever since I was a little girl.
Doing research for this video, I came across Say's blog, where she pointed out that while living in San Francisco, California, she knew only one other person who had an issue with health precautions for a pandemic. Frankly, it seems like a cell-phone to say that most other people are alright with the benign thing that the person in question has an issue with.
Am I so out of touch?
Basically, Say and her ilk had to make some minor changes to their life, and they acted like they were the victim of something like being forced to stay in a single place.
Oh, you're crying? No. You're fucking crying?
As for the concept of vaccines, Say stated that they are based around, quote, manufactured fear, end quote. Not surprisingly, she is also a staunch transphobe, to the point of stating that transgender people, as a concept, are not scientifically valid. Ironically, while stating that a civil group of people should not exist, Say was at an event called Freedom Fest. When right-wingers say that they support concepts like freedom, liberty, and so forth, they are only referring to those applying to certain groups, like not having minority civil groups be included in that. Also, while at Freedom Fest, Say had a friendly meeting with anti-vaccine activist and far-right presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr., who has said that the coronavirus pandemic was a conspiracy to make everybody except Jewish and Chinese people sick.
That's not something to be fucking proud of!
The victim mentality that Say has also included her complaining about how right-wingers were supposedly, quote, suppressed, end quote, on Twitter. You may have noticed that Say does not say what right-wing positions were not allowed. The type of right-wing positions that were, quote, suppressed, end quote, as Say put it, were white supremacy, the QAnon conspiracy theory that falsely accuses random people of being pedophiles, and anti-vaccine misinformation, which Say likely agrees with. As a side note, after apartheid welfare, Elon Musk, one of the people in the video that Say responded to, purchased the organization in October 2022, he oversaw the restoration of various far-right accounts, which was followed by a large amount of companies stopping their advertising on the website. By October 2023, Twitter had lost more than half of its value since Musk purchased it. Besides the powers that be at Twitter prior to Musk's acquisition likely genuinely disagreeing with the aforementioned far-right views, they probably also realized that having a social media platform that was friendly towards views like white supremacy is not very appealing to potential advertisers, even if that ideology is mainstream on the American right. Say has stated that she supports DeSantis, based around Florida's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. I will note that Florida's amount of coronavirus deaths were amongst the highest in the United States, despite the fact that the state does not share a land border with any foreign country and has far less international travelers coming directly to the state than states like New York and California, which meant that Florida was less likely than other large population states to have people from foreign countries and, by extension, areas where people may bring the disease with them or react negatively to the disease in the American state, depending on how significant the disease was in their area. Prior to becoming associated with DeSantis' presidential campaign, Say quoted neo-Nazi Kevin Strom by claiming that the people who have power in society are people that Say is not allowed to criticize. Now, I do not know who, specifically, Say thinks has immense power and cannot be criticized. Regardless, the fact that she is making the criticism goes against the idea that a person or group of people is not allowed to receive pushback. Say is a political ally of Moms for Liberty and considers Justice, the woman who expressed her support for Hitler in the video earlier, to be a friend. In response to Moms for Liberty stating, in part, that Jewish people are not Americans, Say attempted to defend the anti-Semitism by stating that they were quoting a Jewish person and they were just saying that Jewish people are a group within the broader civil group of Americans. The fact that somebody does a bigoted action towards their own civil group does not make the action less bigoted, considering that the meaning behind what was done does not change. Additionally, the Moms for Liberty statement does not say that there are Americans and Jewish Americans. It just lists Americans and Jewish people as separate groups, with no indication that one is a part of the other. Right-wing pundit Caitlin Flanagan pushed back on Justice's Hitler support by saying that groups like Moms for Liberty should try not to praise Nazi party organizations, not that they should not do it at all. and that the person from the Hamilton County chapter who initially praised Hitler did that, in all likelihood, due to ignorance, a claim that has no evidence. In response to this, Say would claim that the Nazi praise was actually a condemnation of them.
Smithies, are they booing me?
No, they're saying boo earns, boo earns.
Even though it was a case of an organization quoting somebody and following what they said. She further said that quoting a prominent person at Moms for Liberty stating that they support Hitler and even providing a video example is, quote, hype, end quote, that is, quote, meant to vilify and whip the left into a frenzy, end quote. In reality, it is just reporting on a public figure and organization's actions, which people may have their own views on. Also, Say said that Moms for Liberty are, quote, honorable, kind people, end quote, despite the endorsement of Hitler.
I can excuse racism.
Considering Say apparently being alright with working with Nazis and her stated hatred for transgender people, she likely would have been an early supporter of Nazi Germany, since one of their earliest acts was the ransacking of the Institute of Sexual Research in Berlin, the first transgender clinic, by burning its contents in May 1933, less than 2 months after the government's creation in March of that year. Damon Toll is a reactionary influencer who, at various points, has stated that Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election was an appropriate thing, a desire to assault liberal political opponents, the conspiracy that John Fetterman had undisclosed health issues after suffering a stroke as he ran to be a senator from Pennsylvania in 2022, and a belief that there is a Jewish-led conspiracy to promote lawlessness in America, amongst other hard-right views. Additionally, Toll has claimed that being against Israeli government agents and/or individuals murdering civilian hostages of Hamas and stating why Hamas does in action are praise for the terrorists. In other words, he is saying that having sympathy for Palestinian people and believing that they should be treated like normal humans is allying with terrorism. Furthermore, Toll compared the Palestinian hostages in question to dogs. After political pundit Wajahat Ali stated that a woman was being harassed, Toll claimed that he was somehow a hypocrite since he had previously criticized a white supremacist that had harassed a Native American man. Furthermore, after it was stated that there is a distinction between right-wingers having to deal with people not agreeing with them and governments legalizing bigotry against Palestinians, Toll stated that the bigger issue was somebody being fired from their job due to them supposedly doing a racist action. Toll also agreed with Kobe's view that people who view Palestinians as being normal human beings should face negative social consequences. This was after Toll stated that his view of free speech goes beyond the government punishing somebody for what they say. When right-wingers say that they support free speech, what they mean is that they believe people should be able to push their hatred of civil groups with no social consequences, like being fired from a job or people choosing not to associate with the bigot in question. They believe that this does not apply to speech like being against bigotry. After Biden said that bigotry against Muslims is a bad thing, Toll came out in disagreement to this view. Despite Toll's stated disdain for Muslims, he claims to not be an Islamophobic and racist person.
There are only two things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
Toll's statement that Islamophobia is a good thing came just 9 days after Wadia Al-Fayoni, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy in Plainfield Township, Illinois, was stabbed 26 times by his landlord, causing him to die. The motivation for the attack was the landlord's hatred of Muslims. Hanan Shane, Al-Fayon's mother, was also stabbed in the attack, but is still alive as of November 3rd, 2023. Considering Toll's stated hatred for Muslims and belief that Palestinians are not worthy of human rights, he likely would be alright with Al-Fayon's murder. In July 2023, Toll stated that he is, quote, the big DeSantis supporter, end quote. It is possible that Toll is a paid influencer for DeSantis. 1 month after stating his support for DeSantis, Toll expressed support for a fascist provocateur after I mock their ideology, namely their genocidal belief that Hispanic people being killed is a good thing, by responding to an accusation that an object killed Hispanics and praising said object.
Could we get rid of all the Mexicans?
No, Mr. Garrison, we cannot get rid of all the Mexicans.
Rats.
Now, responding to somebody being against fascism by saying they are a racist is a weird criticism, due to the fact that a person opposing fascism indicates that they are against other forms of far-right politics, like racism.
Seems like you have a tenuous grasp on the English language in general.
The aforementioned provocateur is also a DeSantis supporter and may also be paid to do that. Toll's support for somebody that views Hispanics being killed as a good thing is not his only supportive connection to genociding people. In July 2023, after far-right personality Greg Gutfeld defended the Holocaust by saying that only non-useful people were killed in the Nazi concentration camps, and lawyer and activist Tristan Snell rightly criticized him for it, Toll falsely claimed that Snell's summary of Gutfeld's Holocaust defense was inaccurate. He further said that the Nazi genocide was a good thing, by stating that the idea that people imprisoned were taught important lessons.
Organized sport is very popular. Those that don't play certainly enjoy watching. At the end of the working day, the centrally located cafe is the ideal place for friends and families to join together for a hearty and nutritious meal. The children in particular enjoy the pastries and cakes on offer.
Toll stated that he thought that Snell's criticism of Holocaust defense was, quote, more egregious, end quote, than Gutfeld's Holocaust defense. Additionally, when Toll was portrayed as somebody who associates himself with Nazis, he gave his endorsement to the portrayal.
I am Adolf Hitler, command of the Third Reich!
DeSantis is a white nationalist and a crypto-fascist. Both are mainstream and accepted positions on the American right. He is done in the support of people who hold further right political beliefs than him, whether it is favorable views towards Nazism or even outright support for the ideology. The DeSantis supporters that I mentioned in this video are part of the fascist movement in America. They want to create a government similar to Nazi Germany, perhaps including the government-sanctioned murder of people and civil groups they hate. Other people, who are the majority, especially amongst younger people, need to do something to prevent these fascists and their ilk from getting power.